Well, I think let's start chronologically. So let's go with Jesus Christ Superstar.
Perfect. You want to introduce it a bit as you always do?
Sure, I'll give a bit of context. So, Jesus Christ Superstar is a musical that is written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, the Lord of musical theatre in the UK. He is really known for a lot of his work that is more recent, but actually, Andrew Lloyd Webber's first work were much more, I would say, deep and researched than what he does today, in my opinion. And Jesus Christ Superstar is probably the first big musical that made him famous and really put in the light his capacity to write a good music. And it's so music by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and the lyrics are by Tim Rice. And actually, what's funny is that there is no real book to the story. It is one of the rare musicals that has no book because it's based off the Bible,
Hmm.
and the whole show is only lyrics and music. There is no real dialogue. So it's quite funny to see one of those musicals without an author for the book. But here it is. It's a musical that has been written in 1971 and has had many different versions. And it's a quite controversial show because it's hard to the aim of this musical was to show the human side and the humanity of that very famous story, and try to show more of the human side of Jesus more than the divine side of him. So it was quite controversial because Jesus Christ Superstar, a music about the Bible that contains electric guitar and contains all of these modern references and instruments, and also that shows that he was a human that had needs and that was in love and wanted to have a life with a woman, and all of these like bad things that are not usually accepted by religion. He put them in this musical, and yeah, that's a bit of the context.
It's very good. I also read that this album was very experimental
Yeah.
for Andrew Lloyd Webber. So, for example, if you compare it to The Phantom of the Opera, it's a very different show all around. As you said, no dialogues, just music. And what's funny about, because like when you mentioned the book, I thought of something different. I thought of the script. And what's funny about the script, I looked it up online, and it's like 13 pages because it's so short because it's just lyrics. It's just songs, like
Yeah.
rock songs, not musical songs. It's just like rock songs that really have a musical energy. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was just funny finding the script and seeing it was 13 pages long. Um, this musical's been portrayed in so many places because of its timeless um, and then timeless essence, because it's as it's religious, anyone can really portray it who's Christian. The story of
Yes.
Jesus will always be told as long as religion lives.
Of course.
And I've seen some versions done in Mexico, and well, there's been a version done in Argentina as well. Well, in so many places, but it's cool to see it in Spanish as well. And and yeah, I think what's really cool is like it's a musical that maybe anyone can like because of its rock essence. It's not
Yeah.
really musical theater. It's more like a. Even Andrew Lloyd Webber said it himself. I intended this musical to be played at a rock venue, and I think
Yeah.
that's really cool about it. So you can pretty much have fun with it and include
Mhm.
a lot of people.
Yeah, of course. But no, it's a very nice musical that is quite now worldwide, and I must say that it's just, yeah, well written. A lot of it follows the quite accurately the journey of Jesus in his last 24 hours, and it
Mm.
really shows a bit of his human side and the people he met and how everyone felt during this last, and yeah, the show also shows Judas's point of view. He opens the show, which I find quite amazing because you open the show with the antagonist, which is a bit like Hamilton, and you already know what's going to happen, you know? It's more of like
Yeah.
how it's going to happen than what is going to happen. I mean, yeah, there's not that much to say about that show because it's very well written, and I think it's one of these musicals that you can really bring anywhere artistically. You can make it modern, you can bring it in old times, you can bring it in hippie times. You can really like set it bit anywhere because it's universal, you know?
It what you're saying is so true that well, I don't know where to start. I'll start with the Judas that you said that is really interesting. And yes, just like Hamilton, you sort of start with the antagonist and you already know what's going to happen. Well, in this case, you know that Jesus is going to die because it's known as for the Bible and in religion. But it's interesting
Spoiler
how
alerts, Agu, spoiler alerts.
oh, sorry. Jesus dies for his sins on the cross in the end. Spoiler. But it's interesting how they also. I haven't read the Bible myself. Have you?
I did not.
Well, I don't know if in the Bible it goes too deep into the
Mm.
characters, the people, but it's really interesting how you actually see where Judas is coming from. There's very like good lines that, for example, he says, you begin to matter more than the things you say, and you understand where his um doubtness, um where his shine, well, no, not shyness, but where he's you understand why he's feeling scared of all this
Yes,
movement that's happening. And
absolutely.
um then well, yes, it's a very good way of starting a show, pretty much knowing what's going to happen because it's not so much about the end but rather what happens in between.
Yeah.
And I'm not wait so you said the last 24 hours?
Yeah. It's maybe the last couple of days.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was the last 24 hours or the last couple of days.
Yeah, I think it's the last week or the last 3 days or something.
Yeah. Anyway, so what the show's about for people who don't know, it tells the story of Jesus Christ in a very dramatized way, and it tells it in the last days of his life before he's crucified. And what this does, it really explores how he feels. As Ilan said, there's a whole song, for example, where he speaks directly to God, asking why he has to die, if anyone will care
Yes,
if he goes on. And I think I'm a guy who loves a good story, and I think taking the story of the Bible and making it more humanized, I think it's like a good story.
I agree. I agree. I think that the song, as you said, Gethsemane, is very nice because it happens in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he actually just asks the question why. That he's basically doubting God. The first time he doubts
Mm.
God, you know. And so it's just a big thing to put in a musical, especially to end an act. It's that Jesus wanted to live maybe, but he was just asking for more. He was questioning God, and this is a big thing.
Yeah.
Also, what is really nice is that they've really introduced all of the bad people like the Caiaphas and the people working for the Caiaphas as as like businessmen or like people that really had strong point of views and it really saw Jesus as a threat because he was a mover of people. He was someone that would inspire. He was a leader. They were more afraid about the fact that he leaded people rather than what he actually did, you know?
Mm. That's interesting. Wait, you want to continue?
No, go ahead.
This reminds me of what you said like a few minutes ago, how this musical can be interpreted. Well, it can be, yes, interpreted in like so many different years. Because, for
Yeah.
example, you could have
Eras.
it as a hippie movement. It really fits into that. Or you could have it as a more modern um, approach. For example, here in South America, there's a lot of protests, so you could have it there as well. And
Absolutely.
the version we watched, which is probably, I think, in my opinion, one of the best versions out there, is
Yeah.
a really modern version. You see Jesus probably in 2010, 2011, around that time.
Yeah,
And
2011.
you see in the show a big use of phones and social media, and you see the all Jesus followers spreading the message through social media, and there's the news report, There's a TV show
Yeah.
which is Herod's
The
TV.
idea the idea of the followers is very funny that we use this term followers.
It's so smart, yeah. And it makes sense to the story because they really are Jesus' followers.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this show has been interpreted like also as Jesus being in his time, which I think is a bit less fun than having it be in modern times.
Hmm.
But yeah, the version we watched is the modern version in a rock arena, and you have Tim
Yeah.
Minchin as Judas, who's written Matilda, Groundhog Day. I like his music.
And Tim Minchin actually, in my opinion, does a fantastic job as Judas in this production. He really he nails that part and brings so much frustration and anger, but you understand where it comes from. He he basically you see his character arc from going to being scared and threatened to actually like being desperate and having to do something about it because he actually wants to save everyone, Judas, in the end of the day.
I don't understand like Judas's reasons 100%. I mean, I do. He's just scared of Jesus getting
He,
too out of hand of his own like power. But what's he
I
scared
think,
of
yeah,
really?
he's afraid that the Caiaphas and the people that are ruling the country, the people above, that they will basically have consequences on this little group of people. He's afraid that these followers, the followers of Jesus, get out of hand and get the wrong message, and that Jesus will not be able to contain it. He's afraid that Jesus started off with a good idea and a good concept, but that everything has been interpreted wrong and that it's bringing everything to disaster. He's scared of chaos and disaster. And so if Jesus is the only way to, the only piece of the puzzle to remove, to bring back like things that are organized and stuff, well, he does what he does.
I'm gonna quickly look up uh, the Heaven Under Mind lyrics because um, what you're saying that they take their his message wrong. I think there's a
Yeah,
line here.
heavens on their minds mean basically everyone thinks they're going to end up
Yeah,
in paradise if they follow Jesus, and they're
yeah,
going to
they're
end
not
up in
thinking
heaven
about yeah.
no matter what happens, and also there is reasons why Judas feels like this. If you look, there is this moment in the temple where everyone starts having like an orgy, and Jesus is furious because the temple must be a place of adoration rather than a place of vice and sex.
Yes, and this happens as well in the Bible. I think it's a bit different. What happens in the Bible? Jesus um, kicks off merchants and like
Yeah,
little market people, and he tells them, yeah, basically the same thing. The house of God is to have a place to pray, not to take advantage of.
yeah,
Here, my admiration for you hasn't died, but every
yeah,
word you say today gets twisted around some other way, and they'll hurt you if they think you've lied.
yeah.
That's the thing.
I think
And
that
then
yeah,
say.
I, I think that Judas is a scared man. He's a scared man, and he simply wants to appease angry masses. I think he's just scared, and and most actions that are like bad are created out of fear, I guess.
And yes, and there's the part when I can't remember if it was directly after he gives information about Jesus or if it was the day after or something, but the part when he is like, there's this leitmotif that says, Judas, good old
Yeah,
Jude, and
yeah,
he's walking towards his death. That was
yeah.
so good. That's such good also use
But
of the
it
stage. He's
and
walking up
also
towards his death.
yeah,
So good.
and it's really good because it's basically the voices in his head that he's telling himself that he's convincing himself he's done something good, and at the end, when he commits suicide, we hear poor old Judas, poor him, he
Or
commits suicide in that exact same theme, so it's quite smart.
it's like his what he thought of himself changed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, awesome. So, do you want to talk about like the music, or do you have something in mind to talk about specifically of the show?
Yeah, well, not really. Apart from, I wanted to mention the fact that Herod is really, really funny, and that Herod is this guy who tested Jesus and wanted to either prove he was the Son of God, or denounce him as a fraud. But the problem is that you can't ask someone to prove that they're divine, you know. And this is the whole concept of believing, you know, believing in something where
Yeah.
you have no proof is the whole point of believing. And I think that Herod's song is actually just so smart, and in the way they've staged it in the concert version, where it's a TV show, and that you see the presentator that has a stunt man who actually does all of the acrobatics at the break, and he asks the audience to vote whether he's a fraud or not. So basically, he doesn't even care about what Jesus says. It's the audiences who should decide, the mass again who should decide um, whether define the whether a man is going to be something, or if he's going to be tortured and thrown into prison. You know. So I
He
just think it's
doesn't.
a very
Yeah.
smart song. And this is something that some composers do. It's called subtext. It's basically doing a tune that is in opposition with what you're saying. For example, having a song that is so joyful and a catchy tune so vaudevillian that is in contrast with him saying you're a fraud, you're gonna die.
My computer just broke down. I don't know what happened, and we're just recording from my phone now. Last thing I heard you say, brother, was that yeah, the thing about contrast. For example, in Wicked, where who was the character you said, Glinda?
Glinda, yes.
Yes, where Glinda said, "I couldn't be happier," which is really ironic because that in itself sounds like she could not feel more happiness, but it actually means she hasn't been this sad in her life.
Yes,
And
exactly.
then,
And then what I was saying is that in the movie Up from Pixar, they use this contrast would they introduce us to a theme that is happy, and it's a ta-na-na-na, 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 ta-na-na, ta-na-na, ta-na. And this
uh,
theme is really put in our mind as something that is really happy and really joyful and a synonym of happiness. And then later, when the wife of the protagonist is dead, you hear this theme but slower, and it's still this happy tune, but played so slowly and played on a so softly on a sad moment that you can't help but be sad and feel sad for the characters. So it just creates this very strong emotion of a happiness played with the sadness in the background, you know.
and like there's like a slight key change, if I'm not wrong, in that song. And like it also, a key change is also really good for, just showing a different emotion of the same song. You know how when you play a song and you just make it a bit higher, it sounds more energetic. Put a bit down, you put the pitch down, and it sounds more mellow. And what
Yeah.
do they do that in Jesus Christ Superstar at any point?
Well, I guess that in Jesus
Like
Christ
change the
Superstar
pitch in the song?
there is some key changes probably at some places. Yes, I just think that the show has a lot of themes, which is really nice. You know, has a lot of
Hmm.
themes and revolves around this, where they change the lyrics but they keep the same theme musically. So it's quite nice. I think, yeah. It also shows in Act Two the way these followers and these people that have really been behind Christ so much, after they're humans after all, and they all got scared when Christ got taken by the Romans. And you see that what Christ predicted, that some people will deny that they know him, and they will like stab him in the back, and they will betray him. Everything happened, but you see that it happened because, and no one thought, like, he said, "Nah, I will never betray you. This will never happen." But the way things happened is that they're humans after all. They're scared, and they betrayed him no matter what. You know?
Yes, it's well. I can't, like, it's weird because I want to say it's a good writing, but it's like it's just the Bible, so it's just like something that comes from the Bible, but it's smart in itself, and it's like a good story. story elements. You know, how he knows that they're gonna be betrayed. He's gonna be betrayed, and then it does actually happen. But once again, what this play does really well is humanizing these things that happen in the Bible, so
Yeah,
making it
exactly.
more real. I
And
think
yeah, go ahead, go
there's,
ahead.
for example, probably the character that got the most humanization, I think, is Jesus' girlfriend or partner, which is,
Mary Madeleine.
yes, I know the name in Spanish, but I don't know the in Maria Magdalena. It would be in Spanish.
Yes.
And I really like how she has this whole song that's just, I don't know how to love him, or how she's always there for Christ. You know, um everything will be fine. Yes,
Everything will
everything's
be
fine.
alright. Yes. Yeah.
And you see how she's there for him as a person, not just as a follower. She really
Exactly.
likes him.
I agree. I think that she is really also Mary Madeleine was supposedly a prostitute, you know, and this is why it was
In
so
the Bible, she
controversial.
was.
Yeah, and so it's a big deal to like make a character in a musical one of the main, the only female character actually in the show, if you think of it, to make her
That's true. She is.
to make yeah to make us want to like her, you know. But in the end, they manage really well, and also when I think of it, at the end of the show, there's something very nice that happened. I don't have much more to say about this show apart from the end, creating a whole song about a guy whipping Jesus and counting the 40 whips. I think
So
that this was
good.
very, very bold, but very strong. I saw the show when I was a kid. I saw it when I was 9 or 10 years old, and I saw a stage production. And I remember I was frightened, and I was feeling so sad and empathetic for Jesus, you know, in that exact moment. But actually,
Powerful.
what is really good is that they the whole aim of this song is to, well, yeah, it if this is what Christ had to go through, you know.
It's shocking, but I think it's how can I say it? You can't stop looking. You know, when he
Yeah.
gets whipped, you're like, oh my god, man. You're like, dude, that must hurt so
Well,
bad.
it's like
And
when you drive next to someone who had an accident, you can't not
you
watch.
can't help but look. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's because
I,
we're
I was
attracted.
gonna,
We are curious, and we are attracted to pain as humans.
going back to Herod's song. Yes, you said that, for example, Herod doesn't really care about Jesus. It's just the show. And at the very beginning of the song, in the stage production that we watched, you see Herod, hello, Jesus, and he's looking at a camera. He's not even looking at Jesus.
Yeah.
That right there, just like, I couldn't really remember what the song was about, but that like direction, it's just him looking at the camera and talking to Jesus. It's just perfect because you see Jesus on down like at the stage, and Herod doesn't care. He's not looking at him. He cares
Well,
about the cameras.
also, when you say at the start of the song, it's crazy how the whole song just shows how futile and small this moment is, where Jesus represents nothing for Herod, and he just says, "Jesus, I am overjoyed to meet you face to face." So, like, as if, "Oh my God, you're my friend," and literally at the end of the song, he says, get out, you King of the Jews!" Like he's like mocking him. He's mocking him, you know. And so I find it funny how in one song you go from like being so happy to receive a famous person, and then suddenly like just throwing him away. It is.
And oh, there
Yes.
was, I think it's really interesting on Jesus's character how, you know how we were saying before, he doesn't talk, he doesn't have to prove being divine because that's what believing is about. I think
Yeah.
it's also interesting that he doesn't talk, because
Yeah.
God also told him not to. It's God's plan for him to die, and if he did talk, he would probably get out of it. But he doesn't have to talk. It's what God planned.
The last thing I have to say about this musical, and after that I'm probably gonna be done, is the end when it's crucified and they make such a show out of it, you know, and they're doing this massive number, Jesus Christ Superstar, with the angels and Judas singing from wherever he is. I don't know. We don't know if he comes from heaven, from hell, you know. And I find it funny how it's a celebration of someone's death, you know?
Yeah.
It's quite crazy, right? A celebration of someone's death.
About that, I wanted to ask you, what do you think? Because I myself was thinking of putting on this show after I graduate in my town, which is very religious, and we have like a lot of stuff related to Christ. So I thought having the musical of Jesus Christ here would be perfect. I mean, where else would you want a musical of Jesus Christ? And I was
Yeah.
always, is that last scene offensive?
Well, the thing is, I think that no, that well, it's been very controversial, and obviously some people are gonna dislike it. But when I think of it, I don't think that this musical has been written for the atheists. I don't think it has been written for that. It has been written for the people that actually already know by heart the story of Jesus, and that he wants to bring them, they bring their attention to the humanity, because reading books and getting told stories by a pastor year after year, generation after generation is very, very fake and very it's not deep, and we're it's easy to forget the humanity that happened in with these within these people, you know. So I think that this show is not for people who are not aware of Bible, you know. It's more for people who actually are aware of it.
Or people like us who know somewhat of it and sort of want to understand more the humanized perspective of the story.
Yes, yes, exactly. And what I really liked, my favorite moment of the entire show, probably my favorite line, when Jesus is up there and he's been crucified, and after the big number, Jesus Christ Superstar, he's there, he's alone on the cross, and we hear an absolutely horrifying music that is dramatic and is very like apocalyptic, the end of the world, and you see Jesus that is suffocating and the pain he's going through, and he says he's hungry and thirsty, and he says how thirsty he is. But the one word that for me really, really reminded me that after all, he's a human. He says, I want my mother. Where is my mother? And this is where the whole show for me is, if you sum it in one sentence, is Jesus Christ being scared of death, and wanting the comfort of his mother.
I think even a better word or sentence to describe the musical, being human, because
Exactly.
he goes through these emotions that nowadays Jesus is seen as a god. He's seen as someone next, but back when he was Jesus, he was a human. That's the
Yeah.
point of Jesus, that he's the human sent by God. And I think this is what the story does, and it does well with the music, with the rock music. That you just sympathize with it because it's good. It's good music.
You know, I just realized also one of the reasons why this show was so controversial. Agu, electric guitars were considered as whose instrument? The instrument of the devil. The rock is been perceived when it got created as the music of the devil. And can you believe a young composer comes and makes a musical about the Bible, about Jesus Christ, about God, with the music of the devil?
It must have been super controversial back then, man.
Yes, it must have been. I don't have anything left. I think we can get to grading.
Artistic, you go first, bro. Artistic, technical, plot, and music.
Artistic. Well, I think it's quite ambitious to be able to take the story of the most famous story of all time and put it into a show on stage. I would give it a good 6 out of 10, because I mean it's hard to reinvent the Bible and condense the Bible into a 2 hour show, and to actually like create new stuff with it, you know, create new dialogues, and really like keep the best of it. Then technical, well, in the stage production we've seen, it's been a concert. It's not been technically incredibly hard. So I would give it, I would say, a 4 out of 10, because it's just been a massive stairs and just scaffolders. Then the plot the plot is the Bible. basically. So, I mean, the Bible is, I guess, well written because it's quite a, if you look at it, it's quite a crazy story. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. And the last one is the music, right?
Yeah, music.
Music, I'm going to give it a good 7.5 out of 10 because it's really,
Nice.
it's a strong musical that I will not get tired of the songs. And I don't think that any generation will be able to listen to this song without getting bored.
I think I agree with you in most of the aspects. So yes, what you said. I think I give it a score one higher, so I'm gonna give it a 7 for artistic, because I've seen. I don't know. I just feel like there could have been so many ways you could have done a Jesus musical, and the way he took it was just really smart. Because it would have been like it could have been a musical with just a lot of a cappella and opera singing, but this was really interesting. It was a good artistic vision. So 7.5. I'm gonna give 7.5. For technical, same as you. For just a stage, I think it was very well used. I mean, it does what it's supposed to do, and I don't think it could have done it better with all the setup. Everything it's got. So but it's not something like the Book of Mormon, where you got so many different sets and stuff like that. So Jet 4 as well. The plot, as I said before, I'm a guy who likes a message in the story, so it was not really a message, except for Christian people who is, the whole story of the Bible. So 5. And music, I'm gonna give it an 8. It had leitmotifs. It had very good themes, musical themes. It had a very different approach to musical theater, and it had a lot of not rhythm changes. It had a lot of offbeat songs. So like instead of just 4, it goes to like 5 and stuff, and it's super good. It's like it's really musically, it's really fun to listen to. And I think when you have many songs that are special in themselves, that's when you really got something good. Unlike Wind in the Willows, which every song sounds the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it for today, bro.
Well,
We did
that's
it pretty
good.
good.
I think we can wrap it up.
Next time we're gonna do the producers. We ended up not doing both today, but thanks
We
to
did
everyone for
next.
watching, and we will see you soon, guys.